Hello and welcome to our first lesson in this Java course, and here we are going to create a basic Java program. So that is my Eclipse IDE that I've opened over here. So what I'll do is that I'll go to file and I'll go to new Java project and I'll give a name to my Java project. I'm going to call it Java course. So that is okay here. So Java course here, and I'll open the project and I see src, that is the source code. So I'm going to right click here and I'll click new and I'll choose package because I want to create a package where I want to put my code. So create it. The name of the package is Java course here, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a class here, and I want to call the class, that is my first program, so I'm calling it basic program. All right, and I have some modifiers here. So I want the class to be public. When we say public is a keyword that we use in Java. It means that my code, will be accessible to code that is outside my package. So you just leave this here. All right, so you leave this option also here. Then you get on to the next one here and you click public started void main. So that is the main method. So you click it, and when you do that, Eclipse will generate a code for you. So you click on finish. So this is what Eclipse has done for you here. First, you are notified on line 1 that the package is Java course. That is where all your code will be going to. So these lines are just there to guide you so that you can be able to refer to your code, or you can be able to edit your code very well. So the code begins from here. That is from line 3 to line 10. And all these have been generated for me by the Eclipse IDE. So what I'm going to do is that I'm not going to use this. I'm going to clear the whole of this. I want to build it from scratch for you to see what I'm doing here. So that is the name of my class. It's called basic program, and for it to be called a class, it has to be preceded by a keyword, that is a keyword class. So this CLASS shows that the name of my class is this, and that is an access specifier. It tells the JDK or Java that my class is public. That is, it is literally public. It means it's going to be accessed by code that is outside my package. We have others like protected and private. I could have also made it default, that is, it is not private, it is not public. I could have also done that. And if you look at this brace, that is the left brace, the moment I click here, you can see that the Eclipse IDE also put some sort of rectangle around this, because that is the opening brace and that is the closing brace for that. Now if I do this also here, the closing brace too here will also have that indication. All right, I could have brought the brace down here to another line here, and I could have also done this here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to clear the whole of this, because this was created for me by Eclipse. I want to build everything from scratch. So that's what we're going to do here. Okay, so first what we're going to do is I'm going to create my class. So I'll start with the access specifier. So I'll type public, I'll type class, and I'll type the name of the program, that is the basic program here, and I'll press enter and go to the next line and press on opening brace here. And the moment I press enter, Eclipse will bring a closing brace for me, because for each opening brace you have to get a closing brace here. Now look at what is happening here. My program was stored as basic program.java, and the name of the class is basic program.java. Now it is mandatory, it is compulsory that in Java the name of your class should match the name of the file that you store. That is, if my class name is basic program and I'm storing my program, then the name of the file has to be basic program too. Especially that is the class. If you have several classes, then the class that is public must bear that name. We'll be talking about that here, but for the time being, let us accept that if you create a class in Java and you are saving that class or program, the name should be the same. Now if I change this, say, to basic program, you see it has been underlined because it doesn't bear the same name that we have here. So if I put it on here, it says that the public type basic program must be defined in its own file. That means that it must bear the same. So I have to add the or I can let Eclipse do it for me by going to this. I'll say rename file to that. And okay, I've renamed this file to basic program, but that was not exactly what I was looking for here. So let me take it basic program this way. All right. So that is the class. The next thing you do here is to create the main method, or to type the main method. The main method is where the program begins to execute from. So I'm going to type some bunch of code here: public static void main, and then I will introducing a string array and an argument here args. All right. So for a method, just like a class, the moment you type a method, you have to introduce an opening brace and a closing brace. But I do not want to bring the opening brace on the same line. I could have done this just as the Eclipse IDE gave it to me this way, and press on enter, and I'll have it this way. That is okay. If I click on this, you can see that we have it here. But what I want to do is that I want to bring it to the next line here, so that I can be talking about it individually. I can be referring to it. So this opening brace is on the line 6. All right. So I could have done it the first way, or I could have done it, or I can also do it this way, but I want it to be this way. All right. So all that you have seen here, Java is a verbose programming language. That is to say that to do the smallest of things, you have to type a whole lot of things before. So all that you see here is just part of the program that I'm trying to build here. So actually what I'm going to type right now is what is going to affect something that you see on the console. So I'm going to type something again, and that is, System.out.println, and then I want to put something here, and I'll write this is my first program. All right. So right after that, just as in language, or let me say English language, after writing a statement, you bring a period, to end it. In Java, after writing a statement, you bring a semicolon to end it. All right, semicolon. So if you take out the semicolon, the Eclipse IDE is going to complain because there'll be an error here. So if you compile, you get an error, but that is fine now. So if I click on run, I'm going to see this is my first program here. So you can see that all these bunch of code that are typed here, only this string of characters was printed here. That is my first program. All right. So let us try to understand the code one after the other. But before then, let me also add something here. We call this comments in Java. When you are coding in Java, you have to add comments to it. You might think that it is not necessary, but it is very necessary. In real life, your program may have about thousands of lines of code, or hundred thousands of lines of code, or even millions of lines of code. So you may not even understand what you're doing, or when you pick your code, or let me say that your program in the next years ahead, you may find it very difficult to even understand. And in real life, programmers work in a team. So if somebody is going to work on your code, then you have to comment it so that the person will understand. Now, because there is just a basic Java program, I'm going to just add a comment that is a basic Java program. But in Java, one way that you add comment is first to bring double / and then you add a comment. So I'll say this is basic Java program. Now, because of the double / the compiler, that is the Java compiler, is going to ignore this statement. It is going to ignore it as not part of the code. Now, when I take out this double / the compiler is going to complain. It has been underlined, right? It means that there is a problem here because it cannot recognize this as a command. So it says that there is a syntax error. So I'll tell the compiler that, oh, I'm sorry, this was just a comment. It is not part of the code. So anybody reading my code will understand that this is just a basic Java program. I can also go on to comment everything here. For example, line 5, I can add a comment here. Right after the code, I'll bring a double / and I'll say this is the class header. So this is where the class begins. So that is the class header, or that is the class definition. I can come to line, say Okay, line 6 too, I can add a code. So you can add a comment pretty everywhere or anywhere. So line 6, I can add a double slash and say opening or opening brace for the class. So this is the opening brace for the class. And I'll come to line 7, I'll add another comment here and I'll say this is the main method. Okay, so this is the main method. And I'll come to line 8 and I'll add another comment. So I'll say opening brace for the main method. All right, and you know, these things are pretty easy to to figure them out, but I'm just adding comment for you to know that in Java, anytime that you bring forward slash, you know, the compiler just ignores that. So let me add another comment here. So this is what is printed on the console. So I can press on enter and continue here on the console. So that is actually what is printed here on the console. All right, and let me add another comment for this right brace or closing brace. So I'll say this is the closing brace for the main method. And of course that is true. You know, when I click on this, you see that the IDE will put a rectangle, that is a red rectangle around it, trying to show me that that is the corresponding closing brace for this opening brace. In the same vein, if I do this, then you see that there is a red rectangle around it, is trying to tell me that there is the corresponding closing brace for this opening brace here. And I can add the last comment here, and I'll say this is the closing brace for the class. Okay, so that is that. And so the compiler is going to ignore anything here that comes after the double slash here. So that is all about comments. So line 1, we have the name of the package. Line 2 is an empty line. This is left for readability reasons. That is for human to read the code and really get it right or understand it. I mean, in other words, to make the code legible. So the line 2 is empty, so the compiler is going to ignore that, and it is done for me as a human to be able to read my code very well. So let me take out all these comments so that the code becomes a little bit clearer. Where it is important, I'll just leave it over there. So okay, I think this one is cool. Let me leave it there. Let me take off the comment for the braces. So let me add it here. This is what is printed on their console. All right, so let me open it a little bit so that we can see it clear here. So line 1, that is the name of the package. Line 2, an empty line. Line 3, that is a comment. Line 4, an empty line. So line 5, this is what we call the class header. So this is where the class begins. Now first, let us begin from here and let's do it one after the other. First, this is called basic program, is the name of the class. Now, you know, Java program comprises classes. So if you want to build a Java program, then you have to create a class. So a class is something like a plan. For example, if a building constructor is building a house, he has a plan. That is the blueprint. So in Java, you create a class. We do say that Java is an object-oriented programming language, and we created this object from classes. So let us understand that when we are creating Java programs, we have to create a class. And to create a class, we have to use, you know, a keyword in Java. We call them keywords, and they are reserved words. That is to say that you cannot use them for anything. I couldn't have called my class because of the fact that this word class here is a reserved word in Java. It's a keyword and it must be used for what it has been designated for. So anytime that you see any name or identifier, as we do say, preceded by the keyword class, it means that that name is the name of the class. So basic program is the name of my class simply because it is preceded by the keyword class. Now, the second thing that we see here from right to left, what we see here is public. So the word public means something that is not private, so something that is open. You know, public is an access specifier. It modifies the type of class. Yes. So what it says is that my class, that is the basic program, is publicly available. So that means that any code that is outside my package, that is Java course, can also access this code that I've written here. So let's go to line 6. Line 6 is an opening brace. Now, anytime that you create a class, the code within the class has to be enclosed in curly braces. So that is the left brace, or that is the opening brace, and it has to get a corresponding closing brace. So we have the opening brace at line 6, then we have the closing brace at line 12 here. So this is what we see here. So if I click on the closing brace, the Eclipse IDE will put a red rectangle around this to remind me that there is the corresponding opening brace here. All right, let's go to line 7. So line 7 here, we see a bunch of code here, public started void main, and we see brackets here, and we see string, and we see square brackets again. We see args. Let's take it one after the other. Now, the first thing we talk about here is the word main. You can see that the Eclipse IDE has given colors to the various words that we have here, depending on what it does. For example, if you look at this, we see this as is it pink or black red or pink? Let me put it that way, a little bit red or pink. So these are keywords that we see here, static void and those things. Now the main and the basic program, they are all in black. Now our main is also a reserved word. It is a keyword in Java. You know, Java has class, and this class comprises what we call methods and fields, and we'll be talking more about methods and fields here. Now, the first method that we've met here is what we call the main method, and that is where the execution of the Java program begins. So the Java program starts to execute from the main method. So it is very important that you write this. Now, this main method here has something here. We have an opening bracket and a closed one, or a closing one here, and within it we see string. Now string is a data type, and it is also an object. Java has got data type. In Java we have data types, and these data types, we have those that we call them primitive data types, and we have those that we call objects. A string is a data type that is an object. It's an example of a data type that is an object. Of course, Java is an object-oriented programming language. Now, what you see here is that main method will be accepting some arguments. So args is just short for the word argument, and of course there is not any special word. I could have put anything there, like say x, and that will be okay. X is just a variable to accept any value there, but by convention you'll be seeing args that is short for argument here, but it's not a keyword. But that argument is a string of arrays. Now if you see these double squared brackets here, it stands for array, an array of something. So it means that the main method will be accepting array of strings, or let me say the string array. You don't have to worry yourself about this now. We'll be talking about this more. So what is pretty much important here is that we are dealing with a method that is the main method, and that's the first thing that has to start. Now the main method is void. We say it is void because, now first, what is the meaning of the word void? When we say something is void, it means it is empty. So the main method is void. Now we call this the returning type. A method can decide to return something that is, after executing, it will return a value to you. So we call these methods value returning methods, but the main method does not return anything, so we call it a void method. Now the next keyword that you see is static. And the English word static simply means, when we say something is static, it means it is constant, it doesn't change. But when we use static to define a method in Java, so all these are just adjectives that are used to define the main method here. The main method, it is void, it is static, and it is also public. All right, so they are just adjectives. Is something like saying I met that short, or that red, fat, beautiful girl. Right, so the main method, or the main thing, is the girl, but you said red, short, beautiful girl. So the name of the method is main, but we are saying that the main method, it is public, it is static, and it is void. So when you are building your Java program, you have to type the main method, and of course you have to add the adjectives of the main method. It is public, it is static, and it is void. So we say public, static, void, main. Now we say it is static in Java. When we say that a method is static, it means that the method belongs to the class itself. rather than belonging to an instance of the class. It is a little bit confusing at this stage, but I'll make it very clear as we go on here. So a method in Java can belong to an instance of the class. When we say an instance of the class, it means that an object of the class. When we say in Java you create an instance of the class, it means you are creating an object from it. All right, so the main method does not belong to any instance of the class. It belongs to this class itself, and because of that we say it is static. It means it doesn't change, it is the same, it belongs to the one class here. And we also say that the main method is public, just as we said the class is public here. So the main method is public means that the main method is accessible or can be accessed by code that is outside the package. So it has a public access specifier. Now line 8, we have the opening brace for the method. So we have said that for the class and the method, their codes are enclosed in braces. So there is the opening brace or the left brace for that of the method. Line 9, we have a bunch of code here and it ends here. So we have System.out.println, then we have open brace. Within it we have double code, and we see that is my first program here, and of course we see a semicolon here. Let us talk about it here. First, I'll begin from here, println. Now println is a method, or you can say println. Println is short for println. It is a method that prints something to the console. So if you look at what is happening here, the results that we have here, that is my first program, was actually executed by this method here. So all these things were very necessary for this to function, but it is the print line that actually did the job. But away from this, if you are familiar with a programming language like Python, you see that Java is a little bit verbose or complex. That is, to do the smallest thing in Java, you have to type a bunch of code. In Python, you just type print something and it just does that. But in Java, you actually have to show where this method is coming from. Now, the print line method comes from an object called out, and this object called out is also found in a class called system. It's a little bit complicated here, right? But let me try to explain it for you to understand. First, println is a method, and a method is just a bunch of code or a group of code that performs a function, just as we saw here the main method. So the function of the main method is to start the program. So the function of this println method is to print something to the console and goes to the next line. As the name suggests, print it and goes to the next line. Now we have another method we call just the print. The print method, it will print something and it will leave the cursor on the same line. But when you add the ln, it says that print it and go to the next line. Now what we see next here, the out here, is an object is an instance of a class. An object is created from a class. So this object, it is within this object that we have this method called println. The println method is actually found in a class called printstream. And if we want to use the println, then we have to use an instance of the printstream. And an instance of that printstream, that is, we have to use an object that's printstream class. So if I put this thing on it, you can see that it says void Java IO means input output. Then you see printstream there. So this means that this method is actually coming from the printstream class, but it is not a static method. For a static method, you don't have to create an instance of the class. Because it is not a static method, to call this println method from the class called printstream, I have to create an instance of it. But a Java API has already created an instance called out. So out is an object that belongs to printstream. So let me put the cursor on out and see something. It says printstream again. So you see, so the out is an object and the println is the method in the printstream. Is this confusing? Let me try to say this here. Printstream is the class and it has got a method called println, but to use the println, you have to create an object. And that object, the name of that object is called out. So the object has already been created there, so you just call it. Now this object that has been created has also been made a field of another class called system. Now in Java, when you make an instance of a class, a field in another class, we call it aggregation, and I'll be talking about it in the course of the lesson. So at this stage, all that I want to say is that I don't want it to sound confusing. So if you want to print anything onto the console, we are just going to type System.out.println, or we type System.out.print. All right, so let's look at how we can modify this code. Let us talk about the last thing here. You see a semicolon here. Just as in normal language, anytime that you type something, you type a statement, then you bring a period, to indicate that you have come to an end. In Java, we use semicolon as a full stop. So if I take out the semicolon, you see that there is a small red line there. The compiler is complaining that there should be a semicolon. So there is a syntax error. If I try to run it, there will be an error. There will be an exception here. So I'm being told that I have to insert semicolon. Yes, because there is a problem here. So with the exception of some lines of code, like the class does not end with semicolon. The class, when you define a class, you have to bring an opening brace and a closing brace. For a method, an opening brace and a closing brace. But for some statements, or most of the time, you have to bring a semicolon to end the statement. I'm going to copy the whole of this, and I'll paste it down here, and I'll change this. This is my first program. I want to call it, this is my let me say this is my first line, and that is my second line. Okay, so if I click on this, you see that is my first line will be printed, and the cursor will go on to the next line. Now if I change this to just a print method and I execute it, it will print this. This is my first line, but the cursor will be left on the same line, and this will continue. So let me indicate, or let me insert a white space here, so that the two statements will not be jammed together. So when I execute this, it will be on one line. This is my first line. So you see it here. This is my first line, and there is a space here. So we see the space here. Then we have, that is my second line if I want to use the print method. All right. Let me talk about the last thing here. I want to talk about other parts of a Java program, and one other thing that we also see is what we call variables. So I'm just going to type one variable. In mathematics, we talk about variables. For example, you'll be given an equation like x plus 2 equals, say, 10 or say 40. What is the value of x? You've been seeing variables in mathematics. When we say something is a variable, it means it varies. Now in Java, we can also use variables, but to do that, you have to declare the type of variable. We have data types in Java. So if I say x is equal to 2, for Java, I have to tell the compiler what is x. X is just, a variable is just a named memory in Java. So I have to tell the compiler that x is going to hold maybe integer values, and integer value, I'm going to use int. Int is a data type in Java, and it is a keyword. It's a reserved word. It means that the variable x is an integer, so it's going to hold only numbers that are integers. If I try to put in decimals, there's going to be a problem, or what we call floating point numbers. But I'm not done, because in Java, every statement must, or most of the statement, with the exception of something like the class or method, should end with a semicolon. So this is okay. So let me comment this. Let me take it one after the other. So I'm not going to give a value to it. So okay, I'm adding a comment here. X is declared. So we call it declaration of a variable. So I have declared a variable to be an integer. I'm telling the compiler that I have a variable called x, and it's going to hold integer values. Now I can now go on to give a value to it. Because I have already declared it as an integer, I'm not going to type the int again. I'll just type x. I'll type x is equal to 2, and now I have assigned a value to it. So I'll say x is initialized or assigned a value. Okay, so that is actually what has happened here. So this is what I'm going to do. Just one variable, I have declared it, I've assigned a value to it. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to print out what I have here. So I'll type System.out.println, and when I put x into 8 here, you can see that in our first code, I put the statements that I printed, I put them in double quotation marks. If I put those statements, or in Java, if you put characters in double quotation marks, those characters are called string. It means that I want the program, or I want a compiler to print the characters exactly as they are. That is what we call a string literal. Now here, I have not put any quotation marks here. So what I'm telling the compiler that I have already declared a variable called x. I've given a value to it too. So if I click on this to execute this code, Java is not going to print s. Java is going to look for the value of x. Now x is just a name given to a memory that holds a value 2. So if I click on the run, I will see 2 here instead of x. Now if I want the program to print exactly s, then I have to tell the compiler that no, I'm not interested in the value in it. I want you to print it exactly as it is. So I'll put it in a double quotation marks. In other words, I'll change this to a string. So when I execute this, I will see the x instead of the 2. So you can see that x is here now. Now let me do something that is interesting here. I want to square this number, the square of this number. So I'm going to put this in a double quotation mark because there is just a string. I want this to be printed onto the console just exactly as it is. So I'll say the square of, and I'll leave a space bar, a white space, and then I will get out of the double quotation marks and bring plus. The plus here is used for concatenation. I'll be talking about it. The square of x, another plus, then I'll bring a double quotation mark, is, then I get out of it again, I bring plus, and then here I'll type x, I'll type times x. All right, so let us try to explain this code here. Now plus sign in mathematics is used for addition. In Java 2 it is used for addition. It is also used for what we call concatenation. To concatenate is to append something to another thing. So what is happening here is that the compiler is going to print the whole of this as a string literal. That is exactly as it is, because the square of is found in the double quotation mark, so it's not going to change anything. I will see the square of on the console. Then the plus here tells the compiler that then add this to it. It is going to append this to that, or it is going to concatenate it. But x here is not in double quotation marks, so that is to say that s here has been declared and defined. So in place of this x, because it is not in double quotation mark, the compiler will pick 2 instead of x here. Then it will get into the double quotation marks again and print s exactly as it is. So we are going to have ix here, and get out of it here, there is another plus here, and these 2 here, xx here, they are not in double quotation mark, but we see times here. All right, so the compiler is going to use the value here because it's not a string. It has been declared and assigned a value. So what we see here actually is 2 times 2. And that is the beauty about programming language. Java is not going to print 2 times 2. Java is going to evaluate 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So what we're going to see here is the square of 2 is 4. That is actually what is happening here. So let me click on it here. And yes, so we see the square of 2 is 4. So there is a basic program in Java that we have here. And there is the class name, there is the main method we have to have here. So don't forget public static void main, and within it we have the string array, and we have an identifier that is args arguments, and you can always declare a variable and assign it a value, or you can do it on one line. You declare it, and at the same time you say equal to the value you want to give to it. Let me take off this. So we can declare and initialize the value at the same time. So let me give another number to it. Let me say 4. So now we are going to say the square of 4 is 16. So when I run it, we say the square of 4 is 16. If I change the value here, let me change it to another value here. Let me say 10. What is the square of 10? The square of 10 is 100. So we're going to say the square of 10 is 100. The square of 10 is 100.